Welcome to St. Patrick's Church in Monkstown. Our church, being dedicated to St. Patrick, contains some beautiful stained glass windows which depict the life of St. Patrick. But because of the shape of the sanctuary area where these panels are, many people never get a chance to see them unless you come up onto the sanctuary area and look around. I'm delighted to be joined today by Dr. Seamus, a local historian and parishioner of the church, who will shed some light on the life of St. Patrick and the scenes which these panels depict.
We know that St. Patrick was an active missionary in Ireland in the 5th century, but we're not absolutely certain as to when he arrived as a missionary or when he died. Popular tradition has it that he arrived in the year 432 and died in 460. However, he may be confused with an earlier Christian missionary, Palladius, whose dates overlap with Patrick. Then the good people of Ardmore in County Waterford believe that St. Declan was the first missionary. However, Patrick had come to Ireland as a slave. He had been abducted on the west coast of England by by Irish pirates, presumably led by Niall of the Nine Hostages, who happened to be the father of King Leire, who gave his name to Dunleire. So Patrick then arrived as a slave, and he was sold into slavery initially either in Seamus in County Antrim or to Mayo, where he was herding sheep and pigs, actually, on the banks of Killala Bay. We're not absolutely certain, as you can imagine. Well, the evidence for Patrick's life really comes from two pieces that he wrote. He wrote what's called the Confessio, sometimes referred to as the Confession of St. Patrick, which is really autobiographical, but where we learn that he came from somewhere on the west coast of England, somewhere probably in the Cumbria area. He came from a Christian family. It was a Romanized Celtic family. His father was a deacon, but Patrick himself, by his own testament, would say that he wasn't a very religious fellow when he was abducted and sold into slavery. So he arrived at the age of 16 in Ireland, and he eventually escaped after 6 years and went back to England, well, modern-day Britain, where he remained for some time with his family before going to France, modern-day France, where he studied for the priesthood. Eventually then, in a dream, he felt he was called back to preach the word of God to the Irish, and then is presumed to have arrived somewhere around the year 432 to Ireland. Among the many things that among his claims to fame were that he banished the snakes from Ireland, but we know that there weren't ever any snakes in. In panel 1, we see Patrick being sold into slavery at the age of 16. We know that he was born into a family of Romanized Celts on the west coast of Britain. He was abducted by Irish pirates, possibly led by Niall of the Nine Hostages, father of Leire, who gave his name to Dunleire. Patrick was, of course, to meet King Leire later when on his mission to Ireland. Panel 2. Patrick is shown as a boy in a family setting and apparently being educated by his mother, Conchessa, who is reputed to be a kinswoman of St. Martin. The man depicted is presumably Calpurnius, father of Patrick. The family was Christian, and Calpurnius was a deacon as well as being a local administrator. By his own admission, Patrick was not a very religious young man at the time of his abduction. Panel 3. Patrick is looking forlorn. and his hands appear to be bound. His left arm is held by a grim-looking man on the right. He has been enslaved, and the man on the left appears to hold a club over his head. A small white sailing ship can be seen on the sea in the distance. Panel 4. Patrick is herding sheep and cattle on the mountain. There is some uncertainty about where he actually was, either Slimish in County Antrim or in a place called Faughil on Killala Bay. It was during this period that Patrick regained his faith in God. A crude wooden building can be seen in the background. He was enslaved for 6 years before escaping. Panel 5. Patrick is preaching to the pagan Irish. He is dressed in his full episcopal vestments and holds the bishop's crozier. It is traditionally believed that Patrick returned to Ireland as a missionary in the year 432. The cross, which appears on his alb, is particularly associated with Patrick. This is the cross pate. It is formed with narrow arms in the centre which flare outwards. Panel 6. Patrick is shown baptising a man while others look on. There are 2 men in the background and a mother and child alongside. Panel 7. Patrick preaching to King Leire. Patrick had defied the king by lighting the paschal fire at Slane before the king had lit his fire. Patrick was subsequently invited to Tara, and here he appears to be explaining the mystery of the Trinity and holding up his 3 fingers. Above the entrance to the church, a similar scene is depicted in which he holds a shamrock aloft. There are varying accounts as to whether Leire agreed to be baptised by Patrick. The panel above the entrance door of the church seems to show him being baptised. Panel 8. Patrick alone in the countryside. This could be a depiction of his retreat in Lough Derg in Donegal. Lough Derg became an important place of pilgrimage for people from mainland Europe, as well as Ireland, during the Middle Ages. A cavern on the island in the lake was believed to be the entrance to purgatory, and the island was called St. Patrick's Purgatory. A church building can be seen in the background on the right. Panel 9. Patrick is protecting a young boy from a man who appears to be trying to seize him. At one point in his life, Patrick wrote a letter to Coroticus, who had seized a number of Patrick's followers and enslaved them. The letter is one of 2 documents which Patrick wrote and which are important sources for his history. He also had a conflict with a chieftain in the north of Ireland called Monkstown, who, like Coroticus, persecuted Christians before being converted himself. Panel 10. Patrick appears to be exhorting stonemasons in the construction of a church, possibly in Armagh, which is to this day the primary seat of both the Irish Catholic Church and the Church of Ireland. The man on the left is holding a pickaxe of a type used by medieval masons, and a large block of stone can be seen in the background. Panel 11. An angel appears to Patrick in his sleep. The rough wooden building in the background looks the same as the building in panel 4, where he was herding animals. So this panel appears to be out of sequence, and it indicates the occasion when the angel urged Patrick to escape. Patrick, after 6 years of slavery, travels 200 miles to reach a port from which he embarked to return to his family in Britain. Panel 12. Patrick receiving his commission from the Pope to evangelise the Irish. Following his return to Britain, Patrick had had a vision in which he was urged to return to Ireland and preach the word of God. He studied for the priesthood in Auxerre and at other monasteries in modern-day France before returning to Ireland. He initially landed in Wicklow, where he was not made welcome, and subsequently sailed north and landed at the mouth of the Boyne. On his way, he rested for a few days at the island which now bears his name, Innispatrick. This creates an interesting link with Monkstown, since it was from this island monastery of Innispatrick that the monks fled in 798 to settle in Monkstown. They carried with them the relics of their patron, St. Mochana, and are believed to have settled where the old Monkstown graveyard is now. Panel 13. Patrick at prayer sees a vision of Christ. He is on an elevated site with the sea in the background, which suggests that this might be a depiction of Patrick and Croagh Patrick, where he reputedly fasted for 40 days. In the course of his stay, God granted Patrick's wish to be the judge of the Irish on the last day. Panel 14. Patrick on his deathbed. It is believed that Patrick died at Saltpatrick in County Down on the 17th of March in 460, where he had also established his first church. He is buried in Downpatrick, County Down. While the year of his death is popularly taken to be 460, this is not certain.